right, folks. This time we are for real. The Tech Town Square. We are live. Apparently, everyone's streaming. So, Eddie, welcome. Good evening. How do you do, good sir?
Happy New Year to you, James, man. Fantastic. You know what's funny about that is I was saying in the sentence about the technology, we're all technologists nowadays. You have to be, because, you know, you got to be clumsy thumbsy to get anything done. And here we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, we hope, I think in 2021, my desire for this town square is that we might be able to share knowledge in technology, have an open discussion and forum in 2021 about anything goes, tying it into technology. And then maybe we all learn together to become great technologists. I see a few people are making comments. Thank you for that. Karen, good evening to you too. Happy New Year to you. And so, James, we're off to the races, my friend.
We are off to the races. What a day. January 6th of the year's Lord 2021. And man, oh man, if you got any work done today after about 1 p.m.,
it was pretty
I don't know what planet you were living on. And yes, Jay Sean, you can ask questions. Of course, that's the whole point of the show. This is a town square, folks. You can ask anything you want. We'll try to answer it with our wisdom or silliness. Either way, you will try to get an answer for you.
And at some point, we'll try to pull you into the conversation as well, right? So we'll get some people coming in live. So
absolutely perfect. So and good evening to my lovely, beautiful partner, Corinne. Hello. Lovely for you to join us. So, all right. So here's the deal. No one's been able to get any work done. I don't know about you. Everyone's glued to Twitter. Tech censorship at the highest level is going on right now. Twitter has decided to sanction the sitting U.S. president of the United States. They've now suspended his account. I'm going to put this up here. Here's the retweet from Blaze. Matt Blaze just retweeted this. This is the Twitter safety account. So I'm going to bring it up here. Twitter safety says, as a result of the unprecedented ongoing situation in Washington, D.C., we have required the removal of 3 real Donald Trump tweets that were posted earlier today for repeated and severe violations of our civic integrity policy.
Now, do we have a copy of these tweets?
So I've had them before, and they've removed them, and I couldn't get a screenshot in time to do this.
Right. I'm going to try and find them as we're talking here.
But the tweets are the video and then the 2 tweets he tweeted of law and order. So that's pretty much what I believe those are the tweets, though. Don't quote me on it. They've now locked his account for 12 hours following the removal of the tweets. I have a gut feeling that Twitter is this is...
Yeah, it's all mainstream media that's coming up in an immediate Google search for me. So
let's see if there's something here on DuckDuckGo. Donald Trump, Twitter.
So this ratifies why I love the fact that we've called it the Tech Town Square. We can't get out of technology now. You know, so we have to be savvy and we have to move forward. Look at all this. Sorry, I gotta laugh at some of it because it's like you can't make this stuff up. I'm sure that wasn't on purpose, but it looks very amusing, right? The results of these kinds of searches. Oh my goodness, just brilliant. Yeah. So high level observations? Let's start there. There are problems. Let's just describe the situation. So there are problems in DC right now. There is violence. So if you've been paying a little bit of attention, you'll see that people have stormed the Capitol building. There's been some thefts. Some guy had a lectern under his arm and it was charging out of the building with a big grin. Even did one of these to the camera, like that, while stealing a lectern from the Capitol building. It's way beyond stealing ashtrays. So that is happening. There are clashes. I I haven't heard anything beyond some pepper spraying clashes, smashing of windows, and theft of lecterns, for example, which of course is unacceptable. It's bizarre to me that we have to say what is obviously unacceptable. But the reason why I think we find it obviously unacceptable is because it seems to be that people will pick and choose the description of violent behavior based on which party they belong to. Surely, now think about this from a philosophical perspective. Surely we should all, as a bipartisan issue, agree on what's violent and what's non-violent. Smashing a window, hurting somebody, hitting them, stealing something. All of these things shouldn't be politicized at all. Unfortunately, I think that is how a large demographic of the US population is feeling. They are feeling that for the last 4 years, there's been violence that wasn't well covered by mainstream media. And then, oh, now you're going to cover it? And so there's resentment, deep built-up resentment. And resentment's a very powerful emotion.
It is.
It's not.
Well, we do have one dead protester that was shot in the neck in the Capitol.
Oh, really?
By Capitol Police has perished. Danielle says the National Guard was activated. Good evening, Danielle. Welcome to the show. So yeah, so you have that, which is really crazy what's going on. One of the things I'm seeing on Twitter right now, and I'll add it here to the stream, is that cell phone jammers have been turned on near the White House, and that's about an hour ago.
So that would be that's a government security initiative turning on cell phone jammers. We're not talking about civilians doing
correct.
it. Okay. Yeah, there's nooses. I saw a cross go up. I wasn't sure if it's meant we want Trump on the cross or we want somebody else on the cross or we're just putting up a cross. I have no idea. So that was very bizarre. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's full of this stuff, of stuff that's happening. But I mean, I don't want to focus on, what's going on in DC as much as the tech censorship that's been around it. So blocking communication, Twitter deciding who's suspending the president's account for 12 hours is not a precedent we want to give back to big tech. Now, whether you agree with the president or not,
right,
is irrelevant to the fact that if you're a freedom-loving person who believes in this country's constitution, you ought to be able to express your opinions freely. And
so they didn't just cancel those tweets; they actually suspended his account for 12 hours.
So so essentially, President Trump is in what seems to be Twitter jail per se for the next 12 hours.
And here's why you don't want that, is because 74 million Americans consider him their leader, right? To either a small extent or a very large extent. The people that are down in DC right now, probably to a very large extent. There's some agitators down there too, of course, that just tend to follow these kinds of things so that they can go smash stuff. I don't think they represent anybody. They're just agitators. But yeah, cutting off the access to your manager at work, to your CEO at work, cutting off access to your parents at home, for example. What does that do to the people? I think it would actually agitate the crowd even more. I would think so. Moreover, there's a video, so I hear, because I haven't seen it, of Trump saying, hey, go home, stop this, go home. And apparently that video got taken down. I can't see the video. So the video, that was one of the things they took down, was that video of Trump telling people like, hey, I understand you're frustrated. I got to see part of it before they took it down. I understand you're frustrated. I understand you feel cheated and whatnot, but go home, or just go in peace and no violence. We're people of law and order. That was the message. And then he tweeted a few other things that say law and order, where that promotes violence. And if law and order promotes violence, then we kind of understand that Twitter is the social media platform of opposites. Yeah.
Like if you say go kill everyone, they may allow you to do that.
Isn't that funny? So sticking with our technology theme. All right. So this is an issue. Where is he now? Then is he on Parler? Right? Are there alternatives for let's just call him the leader for half of America, let's say? Is there another place that they can go to? Is there redundancy in our systems? So people like James and I think certainly the people that are listening might be technologists as well. We talk a lot about redundancy, right? Redundant systems. And hello there. Somebody just put my name up. Hi, Vincent. Hello. And so is there redundancy to social media platforms? We communicate through Facebook. James and I spoke about the attempt at the Arab Spring that was fairly quickly shut down. Could there have been redundancy to the Facebook application, which would have allowed those freedom-loving people to continue their push into democracy in the Middle East? Is there redundancy to the systems today? Now, when Twitter builds their platforms, they have massive amounts of redundancy, so they could potentially never go down. That's what they engineer toward. That's not the redundancy I'm talking about. I'm talking about redundancy so that we can continue communicating when someone's got the power to just hit delete on someone's account, right? It's whether you like the president or not. So where do we go, right? Is it other people building another platform? And think about this. Well, if a future president looks at this and says, wow, a private company can essentially make me not talk to my people, I'm going to be motivated as president to create law, to create systems, which as a libertarian, I really don't like. I don't like the government getting involved in the pie as much as they are currently involved. But this would, I understand, push them to get even more deeply involved. Right? I would think they would want to break up that empire. It's a bad move. It's a bad move. As soon as Twitter got into the censorship business years ago, yeah, bad move.
Yeah. So Danielle asks, where's Trump's redundant account? So Trump has two accounts, Danielle. He's got @real Donald Trump, and then he's got @POTUS, which was the old account, which was used by President Obama prior and will be used by President Biden once he's inaugurated on January 20th. So we'll see that. I think you're going to see President Trump probably flock to he's going to flock to Parler, Eddie. And he's going to take 80 million people. 88 million people that follow Trump are going to go and if they want to continue to follow him after January 20th.
Well, that might even happen today, mightn't it? I mean, is he on Parler? I don't know, but let's say that's the only way he can communicate with his people right now. 70, 80 million people are going to go to Parler today. Did you think about that, Twitter, when you were censoring?
Well, I mean, I don't think Twitter, I think Twitter's been having some really good times, kind of like a lot of other people who's enjoyed prosperity under Trump's presidency,
yeah, right.
Which is once he's gone and Biden's in, and we see how the mainstream media handles Biden, and if they'll hold him to the fire like they did Trump, or if it's going to be a dog and pony show. It's going to be interesting.
Right. So Vincent's talking about blockchain. I want you to expound on that, Vincent. In future town squares, we'll allow for a little bit more interaction. So sorry to make you type.
Yeah, I mean, in future town squares, we can send you a link and you can join us by video and actually interact.
But I don't understand. Why does it make you think of blockchain? So just type that out for us. Sorry, that might be a little bit of an essay for you, and then we'll discuss it between us, because that's interesting to me.
It is. We're in this like little fascinating place right now, Eddie. The fascinating place is there's a divide, right? What's trending on Twitter right now, by the way, is delete his account. And the 25th Amendment is also trending. So what they're essentially telling Congress now, because Congress and the Senate, the joint sessions are about to go back into session here shortly to continue the Electoral College vote count. And so, it's really interesting. Here's the deal. You take down Trump's tweets and you suspend his Twitter account. and Twitter thinks that's going to reduce violence. And I'm like, in what world does, pouring gasoline on a fire add to what we're to calming down the environment?
And listen to this theory. So it's just a goofy theory, and James and I often self-deprecate ourselves, right? I'm just a guy, right, with stupid ideas. So it's a stupid idea, so don't get your knickers in a twist, all right? So think about this. There are people that I've spoken to today who said, Mike Pence is going to do the right thing. He's going to toe the line for America, even if he gets fired by his boss, Trump. All right, fine. And I've had other people say to me, Mike Pence is going to do the right thing, and what he's going to do is he's going to dismiss. And you'll have to correct the things that I go wrong in the fact that you hear my accent. I don't know the full system here in the United States, so James, correct me afterwards. But then there's other people who say, no, Mike Pence, he's gonna toe the line for the GARP. He's going to say, you know what, this was a cheated election, and I'm going to put all of the electoral votes that are friendly to Trump in. And in actual fact, could even make a win for Trump and then excuse himself, resign from his vice presidency so that he doesn't have a conflict of interest. Both of those ideas kind of, it's like, oh, wow, this is obviously the ones.
Well, I think a lot of people thought that Pence was going to do something similar to that.
Well, and so I'm wondering now if this move by Twitter changes his mind. Right. Let's say, for example, he was going to toe the line and say, I accept all of the electoral college. Maybe he's kind of cheesed off now at this thing that happened. Is whether he changes his mind in 5 minutes or not. Here's another crazy thought. So let's say Trump loses. Gavin Newsom in California is probably going to get voted out soon. I think they just need a few thousand more votes for a referendum. Trump then goes to California, goes to become governor, tunes in all of the tech companies. 4 years later, returns to the White House. So I mean, life's crazy. So that's just as crazy.
So that I kind of want us to stay within the town square of reality.
Okay, buddy.
So I don't think a president has ever gone back to be a governor. I think
he's not a politician.
He's not, but he's also not a resident of California. I don't think Donald Trump's lived a day in his life in California.
I'm just being goofy, of course. Yeah,
but I will say this. Here's a few interesting aspects. The streets are not empty in DC. The press secretary Devin O'Malley for let me bring this up here on the screen so you guys see the tweets I'm seeing, so you don't go, James is making this up. Devin O'Malley is the press secretary. He just said Vice President Mike Pence has returned to the Senate. This was as of 10 minutes ago. He never left the Capitol building. The VP was in regular contact with House and Senate leadership, Capitol Police, DOJ, and DOD to facilitate efforts to secure the Capitol and reconvene Congress. And now we will finish the people's business. So listen, they're coming back. They're going to continue to do this. If looting does continue, if the protests really get bad again, which I don't think they will, I think that the message that maybe these protesters wanted to deliver may have been delivered by now, right? And
yeah, they're
kind of putting everyone on alert. So now we have to wait and see what's going to happen with the law enforcement from that perspective. Trump using the Insurrection Act at this point would be overkill.
What's the Insurrection Act?
Martial law.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So some people thought that this was all an orchestrated grand scheme. If Pence didn't fall into line, Trump was going to have all these people storm Congress, take it over. He was going to declare martial law, and they were going to occupy the streets, and then he would withhold, and it would be a hostile takeover of government. It'd be a coup. It'd be a coup, Eddie, but it's not. It's not a coup. This is we the people, whether there's never any excuse for violence, and violence that was used against the police is disgusting. The fact that people did this is horrible. I think the other aspect of this, and we have to look at the other side, is people are frustrated. They are sick of being dismissed and being belittled. They don't want the intellectual, and I say intellectual elites, making decisions or trying to make people feel, make them feel because their opinions are less of that they can be, less of that.
Democracy, it's
democracy is ugly.
That's right.
And that's what, like some people have this idea that democracy is this beautiful thing, and I'm like, no, we're people. People have a desire for power. People have a desire for specific things that exist, and it's hard to let that go. If people didn't desire power and democracy was so awesome, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and all those swamp creatures would still not be in office. Okay? They would not be in office because they would be like, I'm doing my civic duty. I'll serve 2 terms. I'll term limit myself and I'll walk away. But you've got people like Joe Biden who've been in public service for 47 years. You've got Nancy Pelosi that's been in there for 30 some odd years, Maxine Waters, 30 some odd years, Mitch McConnell, 30 some odd years, Lindsey Graham, 30 some odd years, right? Like, these people are swamp creatures. So if we want change as people, and these people are serious, then to introduce term limits requires 2/3 of the state to approve a constitutional amendment. Let 2/3 of the state adopt a constitutional amendment that says we want term limits.
It's brilliant.
The best way to eliminate this, listen, I've got a great solution for today, by the way. Here's what I want. I want Donald Trump to resign immediately. I want Mike Pence to resign immediately. I want Joe Biden to resign immediately. And I want Kamala Harris to resign immediately. I want Nancy Pelosi, yes, I'm saying this true right here, to be sworn in as president-in-chief for a period of time.
Okay.
90 days, we run a clear election with better candidates from both parties. And let the people vote. We vote in April. We vote in May. I don't care. Right? Run a 30-day primary in parties. Run better candidates. If you want to do healing, if the idea of all of what's going on right now is unity, Joe Biden isn't going to unite anyone. Joe Biden can't unite 2 words together when he's trying to speak. Okay? The guy can't do it. Neither can Harris, neither can Pence, and definitely neither can Pelosi. So if they want to do what's best for this nation, if they really want to do what's best for this country, if they truly love America, like I love America, I don't care who runs America, Republican or Democrat, I will love this country. I don't love this country because of my party affiliation. I love this country because of the 4 pieces of paper this Constitution was written on that gives men and women their liberties. Okay.
The only man I know that actually did that, Washington.
Correct.
I don't think anyone would ever do that. So you're right, and it'll never happen.
But here's the deal. If people came together and said, we don't want Biden, we don't want Harris, we don't want Trump, and we don't want Pence, we want unity. We don't want BLM. We want civil and justice. We want things to be in their place, right? Like we want to take care of the issues that are pressing this country, like our national debt, like things that are really, really important.
Great question from Daniel Shub. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Daniel. Shub, thank you very much for your question. There it is. So you really don't believe the votes that happened are already valid. So it's not about us believing it. It's about the perception of the town square believing it. I mean, these kinds of riots and these kinds of emotions from people are a reflection on the fact that people do not trust the electoral system. Now, we know that there were prosecutions. There were a couple of guys in California that used, I think it was only 8,000. I mean, 8,000 ballots from homeless people. That's what it was. They got arrested and prosecuted, fine, deal with that. So we know that cheating takes place. That, I think, people can kind of go, okay, yeah, we get that. But now people are starting to wonder, how grand a scale is this? And this is the type of unrest. Democracy is kind of like running a family in a certain sense, where, one sibling's a lumberjack, the other one is a professor in a university. We've got a couple of doctors, a lawyer or two, and then you've got some parents that are there forever, according to what James just said, right? 40-year term limits, right? So you've got a 40-year parent looking after this family. And the real miracle to me, my friends, is not that these riots are actually happening. Now, hear me out. The real miracle is all the rest of the time that they're not happening. I mean, personal opinion, we're just a bunch of hairless apes. I'm shocked that we're not clawing each other's eyes out all the time, right? The society and life, this thing that we created, right, in America and in the Western world, is unbelievably rare, right? Given a, let's say, 150, roughly 1,000-year history of humans, right, of Homo sapien, right, up until 2 seconds ago, we were clawing each other's eyes out all the time, right, for stuff, food, warmth, sex, shelter, whatever it might be. That's been our history. The fact that we're here today and able to discuss this in a town square forum with no violence is what James and I are trying to promote, because this is unusual. What we actually have when there's no violence is the actual unusual thing. And yeah, Karen, I know it'll never happen. I want to go back to Vincent, though, because you took the time, and thank you, Vincent, for writing down what you meant by blockchain. So I'm just going to read it out here. So he said,
I'll put it up on the screen for you.
Good man. Two things fighting one another. Redundancy of truth, for example, two truths, fake news, inability to have discord, you're right, is not good. Redundancy of single truth, right? Inefficient dissemination of the truth is good. And yeah, that's it. That was the comment. I thought there was perhaps another one on there. Yeah, so you're not speaking. You're thinking metaphorically about blockchain. I thought maybe you were coming up with a new technology. There's okay, that's kind of interesting. If one Twitter account goes down, you can pull something else up. Well, we're just having fun, Danielle. We're just having fun with a few of these.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. Why can't we do like that? That's my challenge here is, and I want to answer Daniel's comment here as well. So do you really don't believe that all the votes that happened already are valid? I believe that many of the votes are valid, and that's been proven. But there are also many votes that are invalid or raise questions, where in some cases there were more votes than registered voters. And in other cases where they've seen in Michigan, where they were showing this immediately after the election, where dead people who were born in 1919 that have been dead for 20 years requested ballots and voted. Now, we know in every election there's some level of fraud that is unequivocal, that is going to happen. The question is, was there enough fraud here to overturn the election? And that question was never answered. It was just stymied for multitudes of reasons. One, badly written court cases that were brought in by people who were associating themselves with the Trump campaign, but had no real affiliation with President Trump's campaign. Governors and state legislatures not really acting immediately. So we knew on November 4th, November 5th, November 6th, whatever that was, that there were some irregularities. At that point, people waited too long, right? Your state legislature session ends on the 10th of December. You got to launch an investigation and you got to do it. And the fact is they didn't do it. There's steps to be taken per the Constitution to challenge the legitimacy of any election. And you're entitled to do that.
It was challenged in 2000, 2004, and in 2016. Correct.
So there were challenges that were done, and there were challenges done before that as well, going back in our nation's history. So I think that the idea of do you not believe all the votes? No, Daniel, I believe that I'd say that 90% of the votes that were of the votes in this last election and the November 3rd election were valid. I believe that up to 10%, and again, I say up to 10%, it could be 1 or it could be 10. And I say that because very smart people I speak with and other people who I know who question the results, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And so
the beef. Sorry, finish your sentence, buddy, and then I'm going to share my beef.
so the question is, if you dismiss those people and say BS, the votes are right, deal with it, you lost. If you're so confident, open the books, right? Launch an investigation, show people, do it in an open forum, and let there be debate over it. And then if everything is kosher, then we're good to proceed, and you wouldn't have what happened today happen. But the fact is they stymied this. A lot of governors and people slowed down the operations, and that happened to be that happened to impact people because they felt like, you know, it's being stolen from them. Think about it. If you see me walk into some place and you own a gas station and I walk in with a backpack and you see me reach into my backpack, I could have stolen something or I couldn't have stolen something, right?
Right.
But if I don't let you look in my backpack, what are you going to think?
You're going to assume that you've stolen something, right? You look guilty.
So someone's coming and telling you, hey, something here isn't legitimate. Something happened in the middle of the night. There's this boost of votes that came through. It's never happened before. Please, we want to know that.
Right.
You do that, you open that up, and that's and let it debate. If those votes really came through and they were really for Joe Biden, and so many people were at home and they were passionate and they really didn't like Donald Trump, right? They didn't like President Trump. They said, I don't like President Trump. I like Vice President Biden. And they voted for him. It wouldn't be an issue. You know, Danielle says it takes 10%. 10% could swing the election. Yes. And I'm saying up to 10%. Stefanos, what's up, brother? The main issues are the way the laws and procedures were illegally changed by people who had no power to change them. We need an election commission no matter what happens. And that's also very true. I don't know that an election commission is going to fix this, right? I mean, I still think that my original idea here, President Trump should resign. Vice President Pence should resign right now before certifying this election. Joe Biden, if he really cares about the unity of this nation and not power, he's served this country for 47 years. He's got the early onsets of dementia. Go home, sit in your basement in Delaware, enjoy your Russian and Chinese money, okay, with Hunter. Have a good time, sit at home. Kamala Harris, go home. You're a senator. You're still a sitting senator. Go back to the Senate. DNC, RNC, run a quick primary within 30 days, nominate 2 people have people go out and vote within 30 days for your primaries, for your candidates that want to run for president, run new candidates that are going to unify this nation, that are going to come with a unity message. Let us go. Nancy Pelosi would be temporary president. She's Speaker of the House. People may or may not like it, but what's better? 4 more years of division and 75 million Americans claiming that this election was stolen, or 4 or 5 months of shaking the ground in DC, revamping election rules, running a clear and transparent election to win the confidence of the people and letting the people vote.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. So they are never going to give up their powerful seat. What I did like, I think is dynamite, actually, what you said is, how can we create an amendment to stop these long terms in office? Because they're never going to give it up. They have to be forced out by the people. And that was the point of America, right? When this country was established, it was to force the king out of our homes, to say, no, the redcoats can't stay here. We're not going to pay tax to you, not doing anything over here. We're going to force you out. Now, obviously, there had to be a war to accomplish that. But yeah, an amendment to make terms a certain limit, I think, is fantastic. You know, the libertarian standpoint, I think, is this. We have a massive government. So when there is an election now, it's way too, I'll say, noisy. What I mean by that is, are we doing mail-ins or are we not doing mail-ins? Are people having ID or are they not having ID? Right? Are we using this Dominion server? And let's get into the technology again. So James is a Chief Information Security Officer. I am a global security strategist. We have a very similar skill set. When we look at a machine that is manufactured by a country outside of the United States, we immediately go, oh, no, we're in the cybersecurity business. We know the scary stories. And so when we say these machines, I don't know about that. And then we start to see Chinese spies. Who's that spy that slept with that senator again? Was it
Fang Fang? Fang Fang.
Yeah,
with Eric Swalwell.
Right. And so you see all of this start to add up, and that creates a pattern for us. And so it's obvious that the election process could be a lot more simple, right? It could, let's just standardize on one technology, one thing, American-made. Espionage really is a thing. It's shocking to me. I've been in cyber for about 12 years or so, IT for about 20. You know, James, I think you've got a longer tenure than that. So I've been sort of used to and calloused to the stories. So when I talk to, let's say, a stranger at the supermarket and say things like, yeah, well, there's always, cyber espionage happening here all the time. We have our intellectual property stolen. There are other governments around the world that interfere in our elections through social media and any other fashion. People actually look at me with a little bit of skepticism. They don't know, really, what's he talking about? Well, how am I going to get 12 years of knowledge into one conversation? This is why we're having our regular town square, 7 p.m. Eastern, every Wednesday, right? So that we can gain knowledge from you, right? I see actually there are more. Oh, we're going to read this from Stefanos in just a second. This is a new one from Stefanos. This will be good. And also impart any knowledge that we might have gotten. So, Stefanos, the main issues are the way laws and procedures were illegally changed by people who had no power to change them. Good point. We need an election. Oh, yeah. You brought that one up, didn't you, about the election commission? Right. Okay. Yeah. Where do we go from here? I want to try and pull us back into technology. It's so easy to get, especially on January 6th, 2021. It's so easy to continue a conversation about politics, purely about politics.
Well, I think what we're talking about here is the idea of technology and how technology plays into this. The very good comment here by Vincent, by the way, which is, when he talks about redundancies, the redundancy of truth and the redundancy of a single truth. We don't have a way to disseminate information anymore, Eddie. We don't. Here's where what's happening right now with what Twitter is doing is scary. And I was listening to Ben Shapiro earlier today, and he said something that I thought resonated. If you're Jack Dorsey today, if you're Mark Zuckerberg today, after the Senate now has a 1-seat tie-breaking majority with Kamala Harris and the slim majority in Congress and Biden in the White House, is when they go to repeal 230 or adjust 230, they could kill voices that don't speak the way they want them to, because the majority could now dictate that if you don't put pronouns on your social media profile, you can't be on social media, right?
Well, because hang on, is 230? So is 230 going through now? I've missed that. If it's happening,
so 230 has President Trump vetoed. So understand something with President Trump vetoed the bill, saying you got to repeal 230. They came back and they had the majority to overturn his veto. To overturn a presidential veto, you need 2/3 majority. They had 2/3 majority that passed through. That's game over.
He was saying repeal 230, as in don't imply. Okay,
he was saying get rid of section 2, get rid of the section in 230 that gives him immunity.
Gotcha. Now,
which is a bad idea. Bad idea. Because at that point, all YouTube would do and all Facebook would do is let mainstream media run wild and shut everyone else down. You and I would not have a show. Repelling 230 means, Eddie, you and I would not have a show on social media networks.
It'll all be films and TV shows and these.
Correct.
Kind of, it wouldn't be conversations anymore because they wouldn't want to get sued. I mean, they'd be
correct.
Taken down.
Right. Because if you and I say something that would offend someone, they could go ahead and sue the platform for allowing it. to be on
the brilliant idea from months ago on one of our events. You were talking about 230. I thought you thought 230 was a good deal.
So I still think 230 is a good deal. I think it needs to be amended. I think 230 needs to be amended. I think there needs to be some change in the. See, here's the problem, and we're seeing it right now, right? So, by the way, just so you know, what's trending on Twitter right now. Let me bring this up here, guys, because I've been following Twitter while we're doing the show today. Obviously, I don't typically follow Twitter. I don't really like Twitter, but Civil War 2021 is trending. The 25th Amendment is trending. There is apparently right now a meeting going on to take the 25th Amendment. Now, if you believe CNN, then here's Jim Acosta, and he's like, I take no pleasure in reporting that they're thinking about using the 25th Amendment. And I'm like, yeah. All right, buddy. Yeah, Patrick, he deleted Twitter today. So where are you getting your info from, Pat? I'm dying to know, man. Where are you getting your info from at this point? If you deleted Twitter. So Congress and Senate, the joint sessions are back in with, if you're seeing the screen and you're seeing all these people walking, this is about 10 minutes ago. They're all being walked back into the Capitol to continue the certification of the election.
It's a little side note here, man. Seeing politicians being escorted by military and police like this, I hope it's a wake-up call, because I think that there is a massive disconnect between what the people actually want and feel and what politicians are saying. I think it's bizarre. I think the fringe 10% on either side make so much noise, and I'm not going to blame them. I'm going to say the politicians look at it and go, oh, I should say this now. I think the vast majority of people think it's dumb to put pronouns in their handles. But I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing it all.
Look, I don't care if you put pronouns, as long as I don't like a pronoun to me.
Most people couldn't care.
Right, but a pronoun to me only lets me know that you want to be referred to as they or them or whatever, or she or her.
Sure. Whatever.
Right?
And in fact,
it helps me understand that. But at the same time, if you make that illegal, that I have to identify by pronouns.
Oh yeah, that's bad news.
Then I'm not really going to agree with that. So live and let live, right? The libertarian kind of thing. Patrick says he now gets his news from me. I pity Patrick. I pity Patrick. If you're getting your news from me, Pat, then all you're getting is cyber news, and once a week you get a little dose of the Tech Down Square with Eddie and myself.
Patrick, I don't know you, sir, so please forgive this, but it's fools following fools. If anybody's trying to follow me, that's what I always say.
I think, Eddie, irregardless to what's happening, this election is going to be certified. We're going to have a new president sworn in on January 20th. The question becomes on January 20th at 12:30 after Biden speaks for 4 minutes and 47 seconds. I think that's as long as his stamina will allow him to do so. He should be done, fairly quick at this point. He's definitely not a long-winded speaker like the current president. We saw President Trump give a speech on Monday night that went an hour and a half. So,
and he wings it too, right off the hip. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, he had.
Oh, did he have a teleprompter?
He's had teleprompters, but you can tell when he was just off the whim,
right?
Because we were sitting pretty close to stage, but we could see the teleprompter, and I can see when the teleprompter was running with text, and when it just stopped and it was just not there, and you realize, whoever's operating the teleprompter, some
guy behind going, "Oh no!"
And the president. And then they're like, "Back on message, back on message." There's that aspect to it, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, we have to think of what's going to unify this nation. And from a technology perspective, we have to look at these social media networks, and we have to look at the mainstream media, and we have to understand that trust is broken in both of those. And the only people that trust them are the people who have a check mark next to their name that are trusted. And everyone else kind of just uses it. It's a place where I go to see you, Eddie. It's a place where I go to see my buddy Stefan, or catch up with my buddy Daniel, or hang out with Danielle, because Danielle's just super awesome. And so, like, those are the places where you find this kind of stuff available, and that's why you go there. And most people just kind of find it, like. I don't know if you remember when you were in school, right? There'd be like a cool kids table,
sure,
and they'd be talking a bunch of bullshit, and none of it made any sense. But the stuff would come out of the cool. That's what Twitter is,
right?
It's not a real place. I mean, here's the thing: Jack Dorsey and the Twitter shareholders got to be shitting their pants at this point. If you ban Donald Trump, you're losing 80 million people who are on Twitter solely because they follow Donald Trump.
Actually, that's interesting. That's right. There are a lot of people there just for the very reason you just said, right? They hang out with a few friends. They follow a few other people. That's it. Yeah.
Right. But once Trump's off the platform, and once you've got nothing to really talk about, right? Because listen, controversy tends to drive more than agreement, right? And so we know that the mainstream media is going to use its kids' gloves with Joe Biden. We've seen that the guy wasn't asked a hard question at all during his campaign, and we'll see what happens. I mean,
well, Bob Turner in the comments here nails it, right? Social media is entertainment, and that's what it's become like.
Hey, Bob, I totally agree. Totally agree. Social media. But most people don't take it as that. I'll give you an example, Bob. I had someone on. We'll keep Bob's comment up here. Bob, who's the CISO over at the University of Wisconsin. So here's the deal. In our world, in this country, with people who are well informed like yourself and myself, we look at Twitter and we laugh. Right? But in other parts of the world, Facebook and social media is their lonely source of information. I had Anna on from KnowBe4, and she works out of Africa. And she said that when people buy a phone in Africa, they buy a smart device, the cell phone operator, the guy at the shop, will load to the first-time smartphone user Facebook and say, this is how you get to the internet, Facebook. And that's also done in India. That's done all in Southeast Asia. They're telling you social media is the internet. Yeah. You and I, Eddie, when we learned, and Bob would be the same, and Danielle would be the same, and Pat would be the same, and Stefanos would be the same. When we learned the internet, we knew of a web browser called Internet Explorer. Right, this was before all the fancy ones.
Yeah, Mozilla. Right? Yeah,
and we went to Google or MSN or Yahoo, and we did a search for what we were looking for, and we decimated, like it was like a library, only without paper, right? And you were able to make those decisions. When social media's algorithms are making decisions for you, it's not, and the people who you trust to buy your phone from do that. I mean, that is folks, that is dangerous, and that's happening globally, and that's why we have to address it. Danielle also comments, rich kids table. Yes, Danielle, the rich kids table or the poor kids table. And Patrick brings up this. I thought you were going to talk about crypto. Most social media is some weird place filled with social enclaves, and the algorithms perpetual shock. Maybe Snapchat should come back. So Snapchat is around for kids, right?
Someone actually once told me this. I don't know if this is true with Snapchat. I thought it was really interesting. When they first started out, I was really baffled. I mean, how are these people going to make money? Because they created an insane technology. It was a little bit goofy. It put a mustache on you and a hat, and it didn't quite work. Now it's working really well. Rumorville, so this is why I want to know if it's true or not. Peugeot, the French car manufacturer, signing business with Snapchat because what they want are the algorithms. And this is the future. You get in your car. If you're drunk, right, the ignition won't start because the facial recognition technology is that good now. Or you walk up to the car and the window is actually a sensor. It can see you, facial recognition, and the car unlocks and starts. I thought that blew my mind. So if the intellectual property is truly the value of that company and not the advertising, and I don't get Snapchat, but my kids are on it. They think it's hilarious. But that could be insane, right? Let's move there, because we're bound to get dragged back into politics in a few seconds. But what are your thoughts on that, James? Yeah, did you freeze, my friend? Oh no, you're reading.
No, I'm reading something here.
All right, sounds good. Anyway, while you chat, I'm just going to Google whether that's true or not, because I think that would be amazing.
So I'm kind of going to pivot, if you don't mind, for just a moment. I think the fact is that Snapchat is a pretty decent platform for messaging, right? No different than WhatsApp or any other ones. I think the problem we have with social media, and I'll say this 500 times over, LinkedIn was my safe space for the last year. When I didn't want to hear about anything political, I went to LinkedIn and I found my cyber community and I found people that I could help, and it was great. And people that would help me, and it was magnificent. One of my concerns about today and what's happening is the fact that the sheer amount of information that's put out there, the sheer amount of information and misinformation and disinformation directly impacts cybersecurity. Folks, all of us. We are in cybersecurity. If your job is in cyber, your job is in one way or another dealing with misinformation and disinformation. I don't know if Charity's watching us, but I love Charity. And she works at Recorded Future, and that's all she does is she deals with misinformation and disinformation. We have a responsibility to inform the people around us. We have that responsibility. We have that responsibility not only to our companies, but to our family and our friends, and we have this responsibility with our neighbors and our communities.
The problem is, who gets to say what's true or not? Right? And by the way, yes, it is true. It doesn't say Peugeot, but they are using Snapchat's algorithms to detect drunk drivers in smart cars. Wow, really cool. Hopefully we come back to that. That's the problem though, James, right? It's like, yes, I agree with you. We have the responsibility as a father of 3 daughters. I have a responsibility to say to them, hey, that's bullshit right there. That politician's lying. This is not true, etc., etc. And yet, even within my tiny little nucleus of a family of 5, we will disagree on what is true or not. So now, all of a sudden, you have to start saying, okay, well, there must be a truth. I'm the boss, and so I'm going to enforce my truth. This is what George Orwell wrote about. So that I can't see beyond that challenge. And Danielle, thank you for your comment, by the way, on the Snapchat. It would have to be a 3D technology. Otherwise, it could easily be broken. Thank you. Yes, you're right. Smart.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not for biometrics, right? I'm going to say it right here and right now. I think the idea of using biometrics for security is foolish.
It's going to happen because it's easy for people, and people will.
It's easy for governments. Security. It's not easy for people. It's easy for governments. Biometrics make it easy. Once they have biometrics on you, I've been in countries in the world, which I'll keep unnamed here, where they take your picture when you walk into the country, not for the visa, but to get your facial biometrics, because then they upload that algorithm into their public CCTVs.
Yeah, of course. As an
and track you everywhere you go.
As an immigrant to the United States, I had to give up my fingerprints, my iris scan, and my facial recognition.
But as a citizen of the United States, you give up your fingerprint when you want to get your driver's license, and that's only to identify you. You also do it if you know, to get through airport security. The idea of facial biometrics and retina scan and that kind of stuff, to me, is borderline absurd. And it'll be something that you know, we're already seeing the elected officials of Congress and the Senate are getting one thing right, is the idea that we can't allow biometrics to be stored by private companies or even government. And we got to limit the use of biometrics.
But once it's out there, it's going to be hacked anyway by somebody. It'll get leaked. There's a wonderful line in one of the Star Wars movies. You know, not the original set of 3, but the next set and then the final set, right? That set in the middle. And the Queen Amidala lady, the one that has all the makeup and all that, I forget the actress's name. She's in some kind of Senate. So there's all the people running around, all these aliens and weird creatures in Star Wars. And the Emperor guy, the bad guy, is basically saying, hey, we need to create this new, force of people. And these are the stormtroopers that are coming, right? And then it's a great line. She says, so this is how freedom or democracy is lost, through thundering applause, because all the people are like, yeah, you're right. And they're applauding the bad guy for protecting them. But the reality is, because we know the next set of movies, which were made before George Lucas, right? We know the end of the story. It's just brilliant. So the problem with what you're saying, I totally agree with you that as a security guy, biometrics is BS. Everybody will want it because it's easy, because we're fed up with passwords, right? We don't get technology. We just want to stare at a screen and we want it to magically work. So
we do.
Yeah,
we do. Bob says it's not what you say or hear. Truth has to be proven. I fully agree, Bob. It's investigation,
right?
Well, listen, the pursuit of truth has always been there. The pursuit of truth has always been there. It used to be that the media was the pursuit of truth. It used to be that you can trust your journalist to go out and when a claim was made to investigate it. That's not the case anymore.
Walter Cronkite days.
So we the people, in order to form a better union, have to start doing it ourselves. And we have to start understanding that we cannot go to news sources that identify with what we want to hear. These echo chambers are disgusting. They're horrid. They're bad for people. It's been proven. You put someone in jail for 20 years who may have done one little crime but goes to jail for 20 years. He comes out a hardened criminal and has no chance of reform. But if you put him in a reform program on his first offense, chances are 50% of those people don't repeat offend. That was a study that was done. Guys, it's the same thing here. I want to say two things based on what happened today, stuff that I'm seeing online. Okay. One, in the evacuation of the Capitol, none of the Capitol staff members locked their computers. There's an image going on right now from someone sitting at the desk of Nancy Pelosi's staffer with the emails open so they can read all.
Just mind-blowing, isn't it? It's like, did you know one of the passwords on the SolarWinds hack was SolarWinds 123 exclamation?
I love it. Hey, that's my password. Why'd you give it up?
So actually on this point, Bob, so thank you for this. I want to mention something. This is going to be really controversial. Please don't shoot the messenger.
It's the town square. There's no controversies here.
Okay. So I follow Megyn Kelly. Everybody knows her on Twitter. So Megyn Kelly, who is, I think, a trained lawyer. I think she is a lawyer.
She is a lawyer. She's one of the smartest people out there. Yeah.
So she put out a post today that I commented on, and I want to set the context for truth. Put Bob's comment up, because you are right, Bob. But the problem is in proving truth. So she said, to prosecutors, right? Video evidence that Jacob Black was holding a knife when he was shot. So the cops that shot him have been let out. If we didn't have all of this distraction in DC, I'm sure there'd be a ton of riots about it right now. And so there's a guy, Greg, I don't know who he is. She follows him. Put a hell of a correction by Washington Post. So Washington Post's correction, this is it today. So that the entire narrative on, it's not what you say or hear, truth has to be proven, excuse me. The entire narrative on Jacob Blake being shot was all about him being a victim, right? Not the fact that he was a rapist, not the fact that he'd just raped somebody, and not the fact that he had beat those or punched those cops in the face and then went for a knife in front of his children, right? None of those things circulated well, right? So it was proven in public perception that these cops did a really bad thing, police brutality, etc. Washington Post pushed that story hard as hell. Yesterday, they put out a correction, just yesterday. And here's the correction. An earlier version of this story incorrectly described Jacob Black as unarmed. While his family has said he was not armed when shot by police, prosecutors on Tuesday said video evidence depicts him holding a knife. The story has been corrected. That's it. That's all they put out. It's mind-blowingly irresponsible to me and frankly immoral by this. And so,
right, but you know what that says? So Someone sent me a link to a very big publication that I no longer wish to support. And they go, you should really read this article. And I said, not interested. And they went, why? And I was like, I won't give them the click.
Right.
They go, what do you mean? I was like, they use this stuff to get your clicks. If you understand how they operate, they put this stuff out there because it's controversial. Right. It's controversial. It gets you to click. It gets you to click. It gets you to engage. It gets you to engage to get more money from their advertisers. It's that simple. It's a business.
So I promised that we didn't rehearse this, ladies and gentlemen. This is my response. It's so funny you're saying this. This is not response. This was my comment to Megyn Kelly, right, on this issue.
I'm looking you up on Megyn Kelly's Twitter right now.
I said the hashtag Washington Post, like any other media outlet, relies on advertisers, isn't in the news business. They are in the information selling business. Understand that, and it all makes sense, right? They are in the information selling business.
Danielle nailed it.
2 words, Danielle. Thank you. Right. So that's
stop clicking. Start supporting reporters like Glenn Greenwald, right? And his new thing. I don't always agree with Glenn.
I'm with you on that one,
but I respect him.
Me too. Lately, a lot more. Yeah, go on.
I respect him. I will follow him. Follow and support people and give them the clicks and share their stories and talk about them and reference them in what you do. Those are the people we need to support. Yeah. And we're almost out of time, so I want to sign off, and I want to let Eddie sign off first, and then I've got a little monologue that I want to repeat to everyone before we sign off today of today's episode. So Eddie, take us away, and then I'm going to do my little goodbye.
A little comment on Greenwald first. I was never a fan for a long time, and here's why. When the Snowden reports leaked, and by the way, this is not a popular opinion, especially amongst cyber folks of whom I live with. The reason why I had a big problem with The Guardian and Snowden and Greenwald is because there was 130 million emails in the documents that he leaked, right? That's just emails, never mind all the rest of the tens of thousands of pages. So there's no way they could have redacted essential information that would have been necessary for the safety of American citizens and American espionage assets abroad. These are people we need as much as no one wants to go to war. We need this. And so I felt, and I've got friends in the military who felt that that was a betrayal to the people that keep us safe. And people did die as a consequence of this. People started, bad guys running around the planet saying, there was a cell here, let's go get him, and just killing people. And so that, I think, was irresponsible, let's say. The last year or so, actually, since he was on the Joe Rogan podcast especially, Greenwald's like, he's not towing the line. He's not that guy. So I was actually mistaken on him. I put quite a few posts out on the fact that, I was wagging my finger. So I want to say, okay, I agree with you there, James. Respect where respect is due. And then to close it off, ladies and gentlemen, democracy is a messy business. Let me ratify my comment from earlier. My big surprise is that we are actually able to do this thing. Thank you. Thank you for commenting. No one's been rude. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff you didn't agree with. This is great. This, to me, is the miracle. What we are doing here today and your participation in this. So really, from the depths of my heart, please come back next week. Please invite more people. Let's continue to have this discussion, because I think gems like a potential amendment, you could start a movement here with this little dialogue. All of us, we could do this and actually make a change. And it's always grassroots that actually does make significant change. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I wish you an amazing 2021 going forward. James, last words, my friend.
So last words. I love this country. Seeing a building that I've walked in 5, 6, 7, I can't forget how many. I forgot how many times I've walked through the halls of Congress and Senate, Rayburn building, and seeing those overrun by protesters. I don't care what side you're on. You don't break into our Capitol. This is not a dictatorship. This is not. This is a democracy. You can peacefully protest. You can want to enter and observe something like the certification of the election. You're entitled as an American to go in there and observe the congressmen and women do their job. You're not entitled to ransack the place. You're not entitled to use violence against police officers. You're not entitled to call law enforcement traitors. That is not what this country is about. It's not what we are about as people. It's infuriating, it's heartbreaking, and it's frankly, it ticks me off because I'm watching us get divided. So here's what I'm calling for, and I'm going to repeat it again. Calling President Trump and Vice President Pence to resign. Calling Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to resign and not accept their elected duty to become the next leaders of this country. I call on Nancy Pelosi to be appointed president. In the interim, the DNC and RNC can run a 30-day primary to put forth two viable candidates that will unite this nation, not divide it, that will build a joint vision of how we bring America back together. Because my fear is if we don't do that, the next thing that's going to bring us back together could be the thing that'll take us down to our knees once again, like what happened nearly 20 years ago on that fateful day on 9/11, 2001. People forget that this nation was also divided, that we had a lot of issues. There were a lot of we had just finished a very highly contested election with George W. Bush and Al Gore. 9 months later, this nation suffered the worst attack on its soil. So it's time for us as the people to put forth a different idea. There are no winners or losers in this case. We all lose. But if we are to form a more perfect union, if we are to form a, in the Constitution, the preamble to the Constitution says this: we, the people of the United States, we, the people, not Nancy Pelosi, not Chuck Schumer, not Mitch McConnell, not Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, not Kamala Harris, and definitely not Mike Pence. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, let that rein in for a little bit, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Every word was spot on. So we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union today, in a time where we are divided, where we are in echo chambers that only repeat what we want to hear, that don't allow us to freely take together information and form opinions. We, the people today, have to look and say what's broken us. And the only thing that's broken us has been politicians and lifelong politicians who make it a habit to divide you from others based on all kinds of things: zip code, race, creed, religion, and other. This country wasn't built off of that. And I know that that's controversial in some places even today, but it is just that. So with that being said, folks, tonight's a somber night. A night that we should be celebrating our democracy has become a somber night. I pray for our nation, and I pray for all of us. And thank you for watching. We'll be back every single week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And we will be discounting Twitter going forward. I don't think we'll be going back to Twitter. I don't know if Twitter will be around in 6 months. So I'm not hedging my bets on Twitter.
Exactly.
And I pray that we all find that. We all find a little bit of peace during these treacherous times. Be there for your neighbors, for your friends, for your colleagues, for your family. We all need that. COVID-19 warp speed, vaccines already out there. So just go get vaccinated, practice social distancing, be responsible. And most importantly, folks, stay cyber safe. We're out.
Brilliant. Take care.